Hello and welcome to my view from the piano bench. We do this on Wednesday evenings at 7 p.m. here on my Joel Holt's Notes YouTube channel, in addition to piano for my friends on Thursday evenings at 7 p.m. Still doing it after about 2.5 years. Different titles as we've gone along. Oh, this is good. Different evolutions of these two different former live streams and now weekly videos. One about my perspective on playing or experiences about playing or thoughts about playing, and the other about playing. So that's tomorrow night. Tonight, I get to yak a little bit. And we keep doing these, and I'll do them as long as it is feasible. And for those of you who support and encourage me via the links that you'll find on the support page of my website, that really makes it happen. And it's so much appreciated. If you're inclined to take a look at that support page is linked in the video description, and you'll find a couple of the standard issue tip jar options, plus Patreon set up like a recurring tip jar with some exclusive content that you will receive from me as a thank you. So let's go on. The topic for today, finding the feeling. I had a couple of different titles for this, but it kind of comes back to finding the feeling, and it's related to things that I'll say in the order of approaching something from the inside out versus from the outside in, two different angles of entry to the same thing. Or if you watch this, you've heard me say this often, the difference between putting a jigsaw puzzle together piece by piece or taking it apart and playing with it and maybe rearranging it. And one is attention to detail. The other is conceptualization of the big picture. One or the other comes first if you're going to talk about a linear order. And even talking about linear is suspect in this conversation. And of course, we all have a bent or an inclination toward one side or the other, but we all are capable of both. But some of us extremely bent in our inclination, like me, where I'm a far more effective improviser, far more effective at looking at the picture and then navigating my way around it, as opposed to seeing every piece of detail and using that detail to construct the picture. And I think you can see the parallel between reading classical music or improvising jazz or whatever. And it's also, I think, a reasonable illustration of why those two approaches seldom exist in equal strength in the same person. And one of the things that I always want to do if I'm teaching is find out where the student is inclined and then treat that as their primary path in, understanding that in their deeper expression, that's where they're going to go, but also understanding that that other side is fertile ground to learn and grow in as well. And related to something I say all the time, practice to your weaknesses, perform to your strengths. So we're not talking about right or wrong. We're talking about different and ultimately different sides of the same thing, or different approaches to the same thing, and complementary approaches ideally. Again, one emphasizes the more detailed elements, or detached. I forget what I wrote here. Either will work, I guess. And one more about the broader concept, or one more the mind of an engineer, the other more the mind of a philosopher. You know, like talking about meaning versus talking about construct. Or you could say the philosophy major in college is not likely to minor in accounting at the same time, or vice versa. It could happen, but I don't think that that's the norm. So the ideal, of course, is both sides working together. And we're talking about not just now in one person in music, but in relationships and in life. You know, in a marriage, you have two contrasting people and you learn to work together. And there are some differences in perception that you have to work through. Yeah. You say neither and I say neither. You say tomato and I say tomato, and let's call the whole thing off. But no, we're not going to do it, and we can't. So, if there were no other reason, and there are other reasons, but if there were no other reason that I'm not a classical musician, it's that I cannot memorize. And that takes me, when I say memorize, I don't mean conceptual memory. I mean exactly the way it's written memory, which is a whole different thing. And that is as mystifying to my brain as some people may tell me that my brain is mystifying to them. I've used this illustration before. You can find it. I forget the pianist's name, but it's not going to be hard to Google search. A recorded concert, and I think it was a Mozart concerto, and the pianist prepared the wrong one. But when you are, and she discovered that when the orchestra started playing the introduction and didn't piece that together before. And I read somewhere where that was actually a setup, but I've only read it one place. I don't think it was a setup. But doesn't mean she never played the other one, because in this realm, you know, like for me, you learn tunes and you kind of internalize concepts so you can play stuff without stuff in front of you. On the classical world, you actually note for note memorize the pieces, and that way you can perform them. But when they're memorized, you recall them potentially years later because you have like pounded them in so deeply, and also because there is no other memory on that side of the street. So when I say I can't memorize, I can't do that, even in the most basic pieces. Now maybe the very, very basic, like, even then, I'm not completely positive that I'm playing exactly what it is. Doesn't matter how many times I've played it. Doesn't matter if I played it 20 times 5 minutes ago. But I think that super easy one, let me try it. No repeat. Well, yay me, I think I did it. Okay, but of course that is a like beginner, very early level piece. I hope I'm not a beginner early level musician, but that's about where my memorizing skills are. You know, I try to have the two-part inventions memorized. I get, you know, most of the way through one of them and I can't get it done. But the point is that my mind doesn't work that way. And actually, I didn't use that my mind working that way to do this. I kind of did memorize it, not memorize it, but remember it conceptually. So, application of this. What does that mean for my accompanying relationships? Meaning people who I work with routinely, whom I accompany. Everybody has to, they'll come to terms, it's a mutual sort of thing, that I am not going to play the same thing every time. I'm not capable of it. And for some singers who are used to classical accompanists and everything by the sheet music and all of that, that can be a challenge because they're used to hearing particular things. And I can move in that direction, but then they have to move in my direction. See, I'm not going to guarantee the exact same notes, but what I will guarantee, or what I will work to guarantee, is the same space. In other words, the same feeling. And that is what I remember. It's like I remember what the picture looks like. I don't remember what the parts are. So it's almost like I have to paint a new picture every time. Or you could say, you know, the other guy or girl puts a jigsaw puzzle together every time. But I'm not so sure about that because I think the puzzle is like put together and permanently fixed. Oh, I didn't finish the story. Did I mention ADD? No, I forgot. What was I talking about? Oh, the classical pianist who memorized the wrong piece. And you can watch this on YouTube. And as soon as she heard the orchestra introduction, she realized what had happened. And there's this super pained look. And I think there's a little bit of whispery communication, you know, up with the conductor. And even though she had this pained look on her face as she went on, she actually perfectly played the correct piece that she hadn't played in forever. And if it were me, I would be just basically, you know, playing Tavern in the Town and as time goes by and all sorts of quotes over the thing because I wouldn't know what I was doing no matter how much I knew the thing. like I said, that's an amazing skill for me. But for me, I have to find what it felt like, or the essence. Uh, Even if I played it 5,000 times, and Beth is used to this, Sharon's used to this, you know, and it took a little getting used to with Beth, because when she writes songs, everything's like particular, in the accompaniments particular. It's kind of a through compose-ish thing, but we found our space with it. And I kind of ask a question: what would I do if I were me? Oh yeah. So I'm like finding the feeling. Okay, I can't believe I'm going to play this. I haven't played this, played this, I don't know, 20 years, maybe 30, but I'm going to break the streak because I think it's appropriate and it's ridiculous. Yeah, I did it. I did it. Look at me. Feelings. Oh my goodness. Nothing more than feelings. Yeah. It's empty shell up here. Well, not really. So for me, there's really nothing that's rigid. Everything is malleable. And that serves me very well in some cases and very poorly in some, if not many, other cases. But it is what it is. But the bottom line is that it is not something that is pieced together. And I suppose that's why a premium for me, a really important thing in music that I listen to, is that it expresses that sort of big picture embracing and doesn't feel pieced together. And honestly, for me, This is going to sound harsh, but that's a minority of classical musicians. Because what needs to happen at some point with the musician whose everything is learning to construct something and then sort of gluing it together is getting it to the point where those lines in the jigsaw puzzle actually go away. And how do I say this? When I talk about things being malleable, there's a certain malleableness, there's a certain elasticity to everything, including in music. But a big kind of problem for me is when even that elasticity is approached in a piece it together way. Like here, piano lessons. If you've taken classical piano lessons, you'll relate to this. And here's where you're going to slow it down a little. And here's where you're going to get a little louder. Here's where your wrist is going to do this so you can create more intensity. And you have all of this stuff going on. And you do all of those things right. But it's basically putting a jigsaw puzzle together, no matter how perfectly you have it together, it's still full of lines. And it's not a fluid picture. And so at some point, the musician has to take all those details, all of those things, and internalize them such that they are projecting what they are feeling. So my own description of what reading music really is or needs to be is breathing humanity back into information that preserves something. Because a piece of sheet music is just preserving the music in the best way it could be preserved at the time. Sheet music in popular culture is a lot less relevant now than it was 100 years ago or more. Because sound recordings are how we consume music now. And it has advanced so much in the 100 years or so, 100 years and change now, from the Victrola, from the 78s, 3 minutes, the LP, stereo, eventually moving into digital, and now you don't even have physical product anymore, and it's all streaming and it's all housed somewhere else, and you can access everything all at once. Think of all that ridiculous progress. But if you wanted to experience a popular song 130 years ago, you would have two choices. You would go hear somebody play it, or you would perform it yourself. And that's why most every house had a piano. And in that house, one, if not multiple people, played that piano. And there were piles of sheet music because the piles of sheet music were in place of the piles of CDs I see over there that I'm not going to point the camera toward, that are disheveled. My sheet music pile would have been all disheveled, right? And, sales of sheet music were the measure of how popular a song was. So everybody was hawking sheet music as opposed to, record stores until you had that. But again, it's all of that detailed information that eventually needs to be felt. So when I talk about that, I approach something by finding a feeling. Let's say I have a tune, and I want the tune to be like a Latin bossa nova feel, let's say. And so what I'll do is I'll go to kind of stock thing. And I'm not doing it textbook perfectly. I'm probably messing up, playing my own versions of the strumming, pattern and all that. But if it had that feeling, communicated, girl from Ipanema, right? So I'll take that and I'll just put it over another tune or under. And I can tell, I can feel that I'm wanting to alter it a little bit. And that's my point of entry and then my point of departure. Yeah. I think that was a reasonable illustration of that. And what also made it a reasonable illustration was it was something I hadn't thought of doing until I started doing it. So I did not write down here that I'm going to play Blue Skis, and make it a Latin semi bossa nova feel. And I may have done it before, I may have not, I don't remember, but that's okay. So hopefully that's helpful. So let's look at it another way. I'm going to take a tune, and a nice tune to do this with is All the Things You Are, and I'll just put it into different feels. Now, this would be really problematic for somebody who is married to reading music, or as one classical musician I know likes to say about herself, is paper trained. Right? Because learning the piece means learning what's there, and you can't just move the parts around because everything collapses. If you have architecture and you design a building and you build the building, if you decide you're going to take this room, stick it over here, and you're going to put a hole over here so an airplane can fly through, and or whatever, it doesn't work like that. You have to construct the building from the ground up for that. The building falls down. But for me, it's the opposite project. The building's going to stand up. I don't even know what I'm going to say about it right now. But let me take All the Things You Are. Play kind of rubato, ballady. Stay ballady, actually, rubato, that would be like a fifth way. It was going to be four. So let me say, stay. something I didn't know I was going to do. And that was pretty cool. And then I realized, oh, there's something I want to say conceptually, and I tried to hold that in my head, and I think I might have. So, did you notice that I had trouble talking a little bit while I was playing, which often is not the case? And I make a point of illustrating why, and that actually illustrates why on the other side. Because if I am playing in that total feeling space, then that part of my brain that's going to communicate conceptually like this is free, and I can use it. If I'm playing from a thinking place, or I have an agenda, or worse, if I'm reading music and having to think about all that, you don't talk to me, it ain't gonna happen, because that part of my brain's in use. And so my brain was sort of firing, because although I was playing freely, I was like, you know what? I mean, freely meaning without an agenda. I did have an agenda because I was going to play a ballad, but I started freely. And it's like, well, wait a minute, rubato, I mean, without tempo. It's like, you know what? I can make that its own thing. So I'm deliberating that in my head, and I'm trying to talk to you at the same time. So there's an illustration of something else I've talked about, right? So me being able to do that is not about thinking about what notes I'm playing. Oh, I couldn't do that. It's about, you got to remember that I'm comfortable in this realm, just like you and I are comfortable enough with verbiage, not just verbs, nouns and stuff too, to have a conversation. You can see that verbiage is not my strong suit. It's my secondary suit. It's the one I keep in the closet and never wear, apparently. And now I'm spinning myself around. Because again, wide angle view, you're not just looking at one thing, you're looking at like 5 things. It's like, which one am I remembering that I was thinking about or needing to talk about next? Huh? What day is it? I can't tell you. Anyhow, so I get in that open space, and some of that I felt good about, just letting it happen, watching it unfold. So, and that was like, in very general terms, a feeling ascribed to it. All right, so let me take another approach. Let me actually play a ballad in time. All right, so it's like the feeling leads me to the notes I'm going to play. And the other side of the street would be that the notes you work out playing are used to create the feeling, and that's more problematic. And that's also why, oh boy, another big subject that I'm kind of going to address a little bit later, but I'll say it now. I think if we actually had recordings of some of those classical composers playing their pieces, we'd be really shocked. Uh, because we're piecing together what we know about era that we've never heard anything from. Nobody's heard that music performed live, from the period, except people who lived in that period, talking about Bach or Mozart or Beethoven or people like that. And then everybody just gets really like in their sort of intellectual thing about this needs to be this because of that and the other thing. Like Baroque music has all sorts of restrictions, all sorts of opinions, in part because we're playing Bach on an instrument that Bach didn't even know about for part of his life, or maybe ever have, and didn't write for. And so all these complications, when, man, would we have loved to have heard Mozart and Beethoven and Bach just do their thing. And, it's just like, it's sort of, I'm just going to make a theological argument. And theology and, religion doesn't play a part here. That's not what this is about. But I'll go ahead and say a little pet peeve. And I've discovered this happens in not just conservative churches, but liberal churches. And that is the pastoral prayer, where the minister will like talk a lot, as if the minister is reminding God about what God's theology is, so God doesn't forget. It's like uses it sort of as a teaching thing, and I've heard it from both sides, and it's like, okay, what do you say about this? It's like if it came back, and we weren't piecing it together, which is a whole sort of theological thing of theology all pieced together. Man, why am I going there? Well, because, that's something I ponder too. And then things become literalistic. And oh boy, does that happen in music, especially in classical music, but also in jazz. There's a lot of fundamentalism in music. It's a complicated landscape. Have you ever gotten that from things I said? It's a complicated landscape in here. All right, so that was about. Now let's take that bossa nova-ish feel, but let me broaden out. And I don't know my Latin grooves one from another. I just know that they're straight A's and whatever it is. there's a certain rhythmic underpinning. So I used the term straight eighths when I was playing. And what I mean by straight eighths are the beat divided evenly, which is the basis of pretty much all pop music and classical music and pop music today, I mean, you know. Right? Do, do, ba, ba, ding, dang, bang. Right? But when you're talking about jazz, you have that ear of swing. And swing is a total feeling. And man, you can't make swing mechanical. You can't even divide it mechanically. It's a total feeling. Yeah, you can't read swing rhythms. So it's like there's something to be said for this feeling thing. So swing it, man. And what I mean is that the eighth notes, I mean, now this here is like a shuffle, but the division of the beat was long, short, long, short, long, short, long, short, as opposed to like this. Okay, try again. There we go. And then I'll play one more. I'll play it like a waltz. Yeah. Not exactly like that. A little jazz waltz. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. So there you go. All kind of different feelings, all the same tune, but all very different. There would have been lots of sheet music I'd had to deal with for all that stuff. Or just one lead sheet, just the concept of the tune, then off I go. So I want to spend a lot of time there, so much so that I don't really want to go to the next thing because it's this whole other subject, but I am going to apply it there because we're talking about finding the feeling, and I'm going to talk about it in terms of piano technique, whole different subject. Because as some of you know, I was very fortunate or blessed to be able to study for 2 years with Yehiva Kaplinsky, who studied directly with Dorothy Taubman and passed along Taubman or rotation technique to me. And it was at a time where this, what we're calling chronic tendonitis, was basically showing me that it wasn't going away. And I was in college, and we kind of went most of the full way into how that technique is intensively taught. I am by no means a perfect practitioner of it. In fact, I'm very imperfect. But I took some important things out of it. And if I were to portray it to other people, I would not be a good teacher of it in terms of its rigidity. And now we're talking about now the same kind of dichotomy before. But in terms of its meaning, I'm all over it, because its meaning, its essence is what impacts me and what provides benefit for me. And the whole thing about this technique is to take the move from all these muscle movements to a sense of this combined with actually using weight and momentum. Notice I'm not pressing the notes down. I'm not doing this. Right? And for me to revisit that, which I do in my practice every morning, I revisit not the mechanical thing of it, like what you do to make it happen. I revisit what it feels like to fall into the key as opposed to push the key down. So if you were to sit at the piano, whether you're a pianist or you've never played before, very likely you're going to push the key down. And the first thing that you do if you're showing somebody this alternate approach to playing is you can lift your hand over the key. And actually, what I do is that I lift it over and then I hold my other hand underneath. And I say, all right, when I drop your arm, I want you to make it totally limp. I want you to be completely limp and let it fall into my hand. And that's what it would be, right? And I let it go, and it stays in the air because they're holding it up. And we are all so ingrained with the feeling of doing that for our own safety, right? Bracing and clenching and all that. It's actually not natural to just, except, I'm going to save this part of it. There is an exception to that, how we walk. But let me not go there. Let me just stick with this, I think. Right? And so there's a certain sense, a certain relaxation of falling. And notice when I just fall like this, there's no tension in my hand. But if I start pushing down, you see how other things start to move? Right? Because all the twitchy, tensy, blah, right? And then the technique itself is all the intricate sort of thing about lifting so that you can again fall. And then all these different motions and fulcrum adjustments and stuff. I remember looking at a YouTube tutorial as a pianist who does a lot of lessons, and talks about, okay, when you get over here, you don't want to like make your elbow go out, so you just turn your wrist and your feet, and I'm like, oh my goodness, no, don't turn your wrist. Can you all the tension that adds. So actually, it's like in my side of the street, if you have this thing where you want to get your little finger up here, so no, you got to, so you move in. You if you want to do this, you notice how short the little finger is. Let's say if I wanted to play this, no, I let everything go out and I keep this straight. And I just sort of violated it that way though, because you can only go in so much. Like I said, I'm a very imperfect practitioner of it, but what I remember from it and what I reinforce and how I get back into it to the extent that I can is I remember the feeling of falling. Something like that. I've got a feeling I'm falling. Yeah. So, and there's all other places this could go. And one thing I'm pondering is two levels of listening. One is, listening with your mind, and the other is listening with how you feel. And it's that feeling that communicates universally. And it's the mind that keeps us narrowly focused. And I need to mark this. Okay. And I've talked a little bit about this before, how to listen to music when you're a musician and all you can do is analyze it. You got to get back to how other people listen to music, because it's all about how you feel. And yeah. Because I want to be happy, right? Or sometimes I'm happy. Yeah, I could play a whole tune, but hopefully you get the point of all that. And yeah, thank you. Thanks for being here. Am I in the frame? Did I go away? I don't know. I can't see anything. So, yeah, feel free to comment. Oh, on YouTube, there's a lot less interaction than there was on Facebook. Because I will not be live streaming on Facebook again. I don't even think I could if I wanted to. Because, they have these, AI and stuff that just decides. Well, many of you know the story on Facebook. My account was hacked, and then an offensive meme was posted by the hacker, and because of that meme, I was restricted from live streaming. And it's like, well, I have, well, that's why I went straight to YouTube. But at the time, wasn't actually set up to live stream on YouTube either. So I just started posting recorded videos. And why am I even talking about that? I don't know. So why don't I just stop and say, thank you for continuing to be here. There was someplace I was going. I don't know. Oh, I think I need, I think I need a little blood sugar fix. So, why am I talking about that? Oh my goodness. But really, I appreciate it. Thank you for being here. I hope this was helpful. Oh, because I was going to say, in live stream days, we had this interaction at the time. And even though I typically couldn't see the comments, you all could talk to each other. But, fewer people have YouTube accounts than have Facebook accounts. So if you're a YouTuber and you do leave comments, you're not getting the same experience. One, because most people are watching later, not live, or not as it plays, and in order to watch on Facebook, really, you have a Facebook account. Anybody can watch on YouTube. So anyway, all that comment thing is different. But I was going to say, please leave your comments and feedback and stuff, and I will take it all under advisement to some degree. Thanks again so much. See you later.